Ladies and gentlemen, it is Pete Rendina, and we are back with Ruining Classic. I know we had a little hiatus, but we are bringing this to a podcast. As always, I have Alex Welly Wellhausen here, my co-host. I don't know if you've seen the pirated episodes, but I brought Welly in as my co-host. Welly, say hi to the people.
Hey, everybody. I did a couple episodes, and we gave the people what they wanted. They wanted more Welly, so we're giving you more Welly in podcast form. Peter.
We are live at Don Larson's Bar, one of our sponsors, and we'd also like to give a shout-out to 8 Mile Vodka, who is sponsoring our entire podcast. We're going to get right into it. We're going to start with the holiday season, It's a Wonderful Life. Now, I know we've already done It's a Wonderful Life. Shout-out to Dom Del Piombo. But
thank you, Dom.
We want to redo that episode podcast form. So, Welly, you love It's a Wonderful Life.
I truly do. Like, it is, in my family, it is a required tradition that you at least watch some part of It's a Wonderful Life at the Christmas season. So this is a movie very near and dear to my heart, but I am so fucking ready to ruin it. So.
That being said, so this movie starts out, and I know it's the 30s, 40s, but you got like a storybook, and someone's job is just to flip through these pages.
I believe it's an angel, Peter, an angel.
We haven't even got to Clarence in that point. And if we're going to get to Clarence, we're going to talk about how terrible this guy is as an angel. This guy hasn't got his wings in 200 years. 200 years. And you're going to tell me that this guy is going to just swoop in like 200 errors.
Peter. Do you know what it's like to be an angel?
I don't, but
because
I know that
I sure don't, so I'm not going to assume.
But he also has the IQ of a rabbit.
We also know that Clarence, we are immediately thrust into Clarence saving George, and then we go into George's storyline. Like, he saved his brother when he was young from drowning.
Yeah, if you look at that scene, there's no way that those kids could stay on that ice and not fall through into the water.
Look, we are very used to here in the Monroe County community of sliding down Munson Hill. And yeah,
there's no pond there.
No, but there is a creek, but we also know that creek is very deep. And if somebody goes into it, yeah, we got to go help them. But like, it's a different time. It's a different thing. So, I mean, we start off with that, and then you know, we could
start off with that, but George saves his brother, and then he gets pneumonia of the ear. How many? Name 3 people that you know that have got pneumonia of the ear.
He gets pneumonia of the everything, and then he gets an ear infection.
He also gets a gait, and he walks with a crip walk.
He does not walk with a crip walk, Peter. He does not. So, like, as we roll through the movie,
he walks with a gait.
The intention of the first part of the movie is to introduce us to George and his family and basically the backstory of the movie. So, I mean, it's in the 20s. I mean, it's in the teens, the 20s, the 30s. It's kind of up for interpretation.
It's somewhere in that time of the Great Depression.
The movie came out in 48.
Like World War II.
Obviously, the movie really starts rolling when we get to the Depression. You have the run on banks. I mean, that's when his father's business, the Bailey Building Bank and Loan.
Now, you're missing a key part of George's childhood when he works at the pharmacy. And
Mr. Gower.
Mr. Gower. Hold on. Mr. Gower is a pharmacist, and I get that his son died, and I get that you're sad about it.
And that was in World War I. So this is where we get the ambiguity of the timeline of this movie is Mr. Gower slaps the shit out of George.
He abuses him like...
He does, but
like a redheaded stepchild.
As it was at the time. We were not alive at the time, Peter. We cannot judge. We will move on.
I'm going to tell you right now. George saves those people and says, Mr. Gower, you put poison in this medicine. Yes. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know how drunk this man was, but the fact that he dips his finger in the medicine and goes, yep, that's poison. Like, you don't taste the poison, Gower.
I mean, that's like me on a Tuesday night when I get my fucking little package from somebody. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that shit's good. I'm kidding. I'm kidding about that. That was a terrible joke. But we kind of got to get through this. Like, yes, we get the backstory. This movie's, 80, 90 years old almost. So we get to the part where we are in the movie's modern day, and George... The building bank and loan. I mean, we have the incidents with Billy, him marrying
Billy?
him marrying Mary, and then
okay, Mary.
That day we have to assume is the day of the Great Depression, of the actual crash of the stock market in the 20s. because like they're a building, bank, and loan. They are a very minor bank. They have to go and
You're
then
missing
like
you're missing a key element here, though. I just want to say from the childhood when George first meets Mary and Violet, who is a complete slut.
Violet's a whore.
Now George had pneumonia in the ear. But
he has a bad ear. He
has a
hear
bad
out of
ear.
one.
But Mary leans into his ear and says,
George,
Bailey,
I'll love you till the day I die.
You're telling me he can't hear that in his other ear? When you lose a sense, your other senses are heightened. He has one good ear.
So
you're telling me he can't hear that in that other ear?
But let's get in the
Come
meat.
on, Welly.
So we're in here. George and Mary Bailey. Mary Bailey is the original ultimate MILF. I will die on that fucking hill. But George and Mary Bailey, you know, the day of their wedding is essentially, we are led to believe, the day of the first stock market crash of like the black market, you know, that in 1929.
Listen,
stock
Gordon
market
Gekko,
crash.
you're getting into the stock market crash, and we're missing key things here before the movie.
So Uncle Billy took $5,000 to deposit into the bank, and then that set off a lot of book records. And then we got to keep it rolling, though, Peter. Like, if we really want to ruin this movie with the Peter on
we'll roll
time.
through it, but listen, we're going to the school dance right away. When
No,
George Bailey,
no, school dance. We're throwing it way too back. School dance. George's
Bailey.
younger brother reintroduces him to Mary Bailey. They dance. They have a good time. They win the Charleston contest. Let's go ahead. We have.
No, I don't want to go ahead on that.
No, I do
Listen,
though, Pete.
Hold on
Pete,
a second.
Pete.
Hold on. Just give me like 5 seconds here. George Bailey goes with Harry to the school dance. George is what? Maybe a year or two out of high school.
George is about 22.
Yeah, and he looks like he's about 52.
Well, that's because.
Anyways, George goes to the school dance.
Because Jimmy Stewart probably was.
We're gonna pinpoint a couple things here that are completely obscured.
Peter, did you really quickly know that the original actor of Alfalfa for the Little Rascals or Our Town is the kid that actually bumps the button to spread the dance floor and make it a pool?
I didn't know that.
That's
but
a real thing.
That part, that kid, the fact that he had that key, where did he get that key from? Anyways.
He was probably some weirdo in student government. So
pretty much. So hold on. The fact that they talk about this pool, this retractable pool in the 30s, and they said we could build a whole building with the pool.
Technology.
We could build a whole building with the pool, or we could build the retractable pool. You think that didn't cost more money?
Wild technology. So,
anyways,
a very moving plot point is Uncle Billy has like $5,000 to deposit for the building, bank, and loan. He wraps it in a newspaper. Mr. Potter finds it. Mr. Potter might be the worst movie villain of all time, and
Potter's
by worst, I don't mean like bad, like poorly constructed. He might be the most evil person since Hitler. So then we fast forward to this Christmas time.
Hold on, can we backtrack 1 second? The fact that George's dad says, "Hey, we put Potter on the board to ease him up. Like, you put Potter on your board for the building and loan."
Mr. Potter might go down as the most evil villain in movie history, and I would stand by.
And he doesn't care.
So we fast forward to the actual true point of this movie. I mean, we are in the 40s, and the building, bank, and loan's not doing good. You know, George Bailey has all these kids. You know, a wife he's got to take care of, and he feels like the world would be better if he never had been born. So he goes to this.
You're missing a lot of key elements.
Peter, we're limited on time. We got.
I know we're limited on time, but hold on. I want to make one point. When George goes home with Mary, and she says that we're having violent sex.
He's making violent love to me, mother.
Yeah, violent love. They're having rough sex, and her mom's just like, okay.
That meant they were having some violent necking. So we go into Christmas, or the actual full plot of this movie, and George Bailey wants to jump off this bridge because he feels like.
Well, you're missing so much here.
But we got to keep the plot going.
I will keep the plot going. I don't mind that. But
so George jumps off this bridge because he thinks the world would have been better without him. And then this is where Clarence comes in. Clarence, his guardian angel.
Yeah,
and
Clarence's parents had a real good marriage.
He decides to show him, like, hey, this is what the world would be like without you. Like, so we talk about the early intro of the movie. Like, George saved. That. Excuse my burping. I've been drinking a lot of phenomenal 8 Mile vodka and lemonade. But George Bailey, as we are shown in the flashback early in the movie, saves his kid brother from drowning. His younger brother, goes on to save an entire patrol ship in the Pacific.
Yes, and let's backtrack on that real quick, because all of a sudden in the middle of the movie they go, hey, it's World War II.
Yes.
Right? And
we are thrust to assume that the main plot of this movie takes place between 46 and 48. The movie actually came out in 47.
They subtly make reference that every man in Bedford Falls goes to war except for George Bailey.
In their own right.
Because he has pneumonia of the ear.
No, George Bailey still goes to war in his own right. He runs the rubber drives. He's an air raid drill.
Hold on. You're going to tell me that George Bailey goes to war in his own right. Every man in town is gone, and you're telling me that he's not hitting every piece of pussy in that town.
He runs the scrap metal drives.
You're telling me he's not hitting everything.
He runs the scrap. He is married at this point. He runs the scrap metal drive.
I'm sure he is.
He runs the rubber drive. He runs the war bond drive. Everything on it. So he decides, like, hey, the world would be better without me. Clarence, his guardian angel, comes down, and this is my big fault with the movie, is like, motherfucker, this movie could have taken place at 4th of July, at Easter,
it could have took place at any time of year.
My issue with this movie is people consider this a Christmas movie. You guys understand the rest of the way the movie goes, like, George Bailey sees the error on his way, see how the world would be like without him. We can break it down. We could honestly break this movie down for 3 hours, which is more than double the length of the movie. But like, my only problem with this movie, again, you have to remember, this movie is a staple in my family to watch at Christmas. This is not a Christmas movie. This is a movie with a redemption arc that happens to, in its main plot, take place at Christmas time.
And the redemption arc happens with 15 minutes left in the movie.
It really does. They really does.
He gets drunk, gets a drunk driving, crashes into a tree, and then all of a sudden Clarence goes, "You're not born."
But again,
and I'm telling you right now, the things that happen, he goes and Mary is an old maid. Mary did not marry anyone. And they go, that's the worst thing that could happen.
If we look in the alternate reality, yes.
You're going to tell me right now that if the woman you married, you went back and she's an old maid and she didn't bang anybody else,
God
you're
bless.
going to go, that's the worst thing ever?
She was saving herself for me.
You're going to look here and go,
Mary Bailey,
she saved herself for me.
Mary Bailey is the original movie MILF.
And she's got the glasses on like Adrian from Rocky, and she's just like, I didn't bang anybody else, George.
Peter, I love you. But the point of this podcast is to ruin a classic. I'm ruining
it right now.
We are ruining it by saying this movie could have taken place at Easter, 4th of July, Labor Day. Whatever holiday they wanted to place around, they could have made the plot make sense. This 100%. Is a classic redemption arc that they have placed at Christmas, thus making it a Christmas classic.
The only part of the movie that is Christmas is the last line when George's daughter,
and she
who he
plays
calls
the
her
piano.
No, when she calls her
Zuzu.
Sweet Pea. They're standing by the tree, and she goes, "Teacher said anytime a bell rings, an angel gets its wings." And then Clarence has that like whole like thing, and he goes, "Hey, George, thanks for the wings, bro." 200 years later,
Frank Capra had a beautiful redemption movie arc that he decided to make a Christmas movie. Solely by placing it at Christmas. I love this movie, but we just ruined a classic by saying they could have made this movie at any time of the year, but they made it a Christmas movie by making it at that time.
I 100% agree. Now let's give it a rating. So we're gonna give our rating system 5 shots. 5 stars. We got 5 shots.
As a movie.
As a whole.
As a movie, what
are you giving it?
Okay, so as a whole, include the fact that it's supposed to be a Christmas movie. 100%. 3.5 shots out of 5.
I'd give it 3.
It pains me to say 3.5 shots. Again, this is a staple in my family at Christmas time, but it's only a Christmas movie because it takes place at Christmas. I would have given it 4, but I will degrade it down to 3.5.
I'm gonna give it 3 shots out of 5.
Hi, I'm Welly. That was Pete. We just
ruined a classic.